Guys, AI data center blowback and drama is out of control right now. It's no surprise that AI data centers are popping up all over the place, but over the weekend, 142 protests broke out across 42 states. Guys, these data centers, people don't want them. And honestly, when I look at the data, I'm actually shocked at how many people are anti-data center. And by the way, this is not a left or a right, Democrat, Republican thing. This is across the board. You know, both red and blue states are against these data center buildouts, and there are different reasons why, but there's also a more insidious theory of why Americans are so anti-data center. And if you hold on for just a moment, I'll explain why, because I don't think enough people are talking about this reason. Anyway, right now there are over 4,800 US data centers across 52 states and territories. There are 3,687 operational data centers. There are 229 under construction, 857 that are planned and approved. And companies, guys, we have covered this for weeks and weeks on end. Companies are spending obscene amounts of money on these data center buildouts. I mean, we are talking hundreds of billions of dollars being planned for these data center buildouts. Because why? Well, they are crucial. The data centers are an absolute bottleneck to the deployment of the next level, the next generation of technology. You can't have all this AI infusing everything from weapons to cars to communications to business. You can't have it without the data centers. And by the way, as more and more people are using AI and more enterprises are using AI and more agents are deployed, that is going to create a bottleneck around the deployment of the next generation of AI technology. I mean, it makes sense, right? So why are people so against these data centers? Well, I'm sure you probably have an opinion, because the reality, guys, is that the vast majority of people are against these data centers. 86% of Americans don't want the data centers in their area. 86%, guys. Let's put it this way. You can't get 86% of Americans to agree on anything, but what we can agree on is that we don't want these data centers in our backyards. I just find that like it was a really shocking number to me when I see that. I mean, just this year, guys, $130 billion in data centers have been blocked. $130 billion. And that's like, that's not just like, you know, we were going to do the project, we're not going to do it. It's like we've spent millions, tens of millions of dollars trying to get this thing approved and doing all the plans and the specs and the build outs and the communications and the negotiations and the sales and all that. And it was blocked. That's a huge loss for a company. In fact, guys, just this past week, the New York governor, Kathy Hochul, announced a moratorium on AI data centers in New York. A moratorium, she said, it ain't happening here. And I mean, is that a win for New York? Is it a loss for New York? New York is kind of a crazy place. If you live in New York, let me know what you think about all the different discussions being had in New York. I don't know. It seems like it would be hard to build a business in New York. Anyway, regardless, they don't want the data centers. You know, in Florida, they don't want the data centers either. Texas, there's a lot of pushback against the data centers. Again, it's not a right or left issue. It's we don't want the data centers here. But why are these projects being blocked? Or is there a more insidious reason why? We'll talk about that in just a moment. There are a few very commonly cited reasons. And by the way, guys, if you have something really interesting to share, put it in the comments below. That is where I get that's where I get the best information. I'm reading and listening to podcasts and doing a lot of investigation into these topics. But the comments that you guys leave are gas. And if you have a great comment, I will pin you. I've pinned you in the past. I will pin you in the future. You know, heck, just ask for a pin, and sometimes I'll be gracious and give you a pin. I want you to drive the conversation, okay? And again, I'm a little backed up on commenting on all of your comments. I do my best, but when I wake up and there's 200 comments to reply to, it's tough. I'm doing my best. But anyway, what are the reasons why these data centers are being blocked? Why do people not want these data centers? Well, one theory is that there's higher electric bills. You know, data center goes in, they put pressure on the grid, supply demand, and all of a sudden, you as a homeowner and a resident, well, you see your cost go up. But it does also, on the side note, look like, well, the data centers, the companies that own them are going to have to fund their own power, which means more electricity, more power being generated, which maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. The other this is a really major one, is water consumption. Critics say that US data centers would require hundreds of millions, even perhaps billions of gallons of water to run. Although it's my understanding that these data centers run off a closed water system. So it's not like they're just going to be reusing and taking all the water from the lakes or the aquifer. The water is already there. So I don't actually know that that's the case. Again, if you have feedback, you can leave it below. I'll probably do an entire episode just on this topic because I think it's really, really an important one that I'd like to get to the bottom of. There's also limited permanent employment, which replaces these long-term jobs. Again, building on a data center could create thousands of jobs in the short term, but after it's done, there might only be 100 people that are manning that data center. I guess the flip side is that, well, with all these data centers, with all this AI, that could create new jobs, new problems to be solved. I actually kind of lean more inside of that camp. I think the more AI that occurs, we are going to lose millions of jobs, but I also think that new jobs are being created. The big question is, are there going to be more jobs created? We don't know. We don't know. We haven't gotten there yet. There's tax incentives, infrastructure subsidies. Like, this is something that I think is legitimate too. Like, a data center goes in, they get a bunch of government tax rebates and stuff. Well, who's paying that? You get tax subsidies and whatnot. It's the people that pay for that. So I think that there could be some legitimate gripe there. Is a data center going in your backyard? How does that improve the quality of your community? How does that make life better for the residents? How does that make it a more attractive place to raise kids? I think that's something that we need to be thinking about. There's also land use, noise, rural character. Like, let's face it, you see a bunch of development happening in a rural area that, it used to be a nice cow field. Now it's a giant humming electrical warehouse. Yeah, it's not the same. I visited Amsterdam, or Ireland rather, a couple years ago. Beautiful. If you haven't been to Ireland, highly recommend. It's every city has like a massive castle. Ireland was amazing. Plus, they're all English speaking, so it's easy to get around. But I remember just like driving through the landscape, and there were these enormous windmills all over the place, and I was like, well, I don't know. It didn't really fit the aesthetic. Anyway, if you have giant data centers all over the place, that might not fit the aesthetic. Anyway, I think there's something there. But the big theory, guys, the thing that's not being talked about now, and I think once I bring it up, you're like, oh, that seems so obvious. And let me just back it up here and just say that, like, I think that a lot of opinions that humans have right now are not actually your opinions. And hear me out. We are being influenced 24/7, 365, beamed in. Social media, email, TV, movie. A lot of the ideas that we're developing are based on ideas that are being injected. I mean, I think you could say that a lot of the opinions that people have had over the last several years are because of heavy influence from digital media. And the theory that's not being talked about is China's influence on the data center opinions, okay? It's no secret, guys, that China and the US are in an AI race. In fact, President Xi Jinping himself declared AI a, quote, an important strategic handhold, end quote, for Beijing to seize global technological supremacy with a national plan to make China the world's AI innovation center by 2030. China wants to win the AI race, guys. Let's not pretend that's not the case. And because the way they're doing robotics, automation, AI is a natural fit there. And what better way to win the AI race than to constrain your opponents from the infrastructure necessary in order to fulfill those requirements? If you are able to convince a people that you don't want the infrastructure, there is no way to win the AI race. And so the theory here that's going on, guys, is that China is actually putting crazy money into influencing American citizens and politicians and influencers and so on and so forth, that you don't actually want the data centers. The data centers are bad. Now, I'm actually not sure that that's the case, but it does make sense to me. If I was, in the market to win an AI race, I would look at everything. And that is a really, really surefire way to do it. And by the way, China is no slouch. These guys, they are very smart, crushing it with robotics, crushing with AI. Last week, we recorded a video on a new Chinese model Kimi that is, it's like back and forth. It's one of the top models now for open source from Moonshot. So in any event, what do you think? What do you think? Do you think that it's all hype? Do you think it's a big psyop from enemies, competitors to the United States? Do you think that these fears about AI are legitimate? What are you scared of when it comes to these data centers? Do you think it's legitimate? Do you think it's all hype? Do you think there's some credibility? Where is the truth at? I want to hear from you in the comments. And again, great comment, pin you to the top. If you liked the video, like, subscribe. And guys, definitely check out yesterday's video. Yesterday, we talked about how US microchip semiconductor stocks have completely plummeted, guys. They have completely crashed out 20% over the past month. And maybe there's something that, maybe there's something to all these data centers being blocked that's impacting the chip stocks. Watch yesterday's video. I'll see you there, and make it great, boys. Have a great week. Peace.